in 2017, the first object from outside the solar system was spotted near Earth. And it was unusual in its properties. It didn't look like an asteroid or a comet, the type of rocks we had seen within the solar system. I was intrigued by it. It had a lot of anomalies. For example, most likely it had a flat shape and a very extreme shape. It was at least 10 times longer than it is wide when projected on the sky. And then it was pushed away from the sun by some mysterious force without showing cometary tail. So I suggested that it may be very thin and not natural in origin, maybe artificial, like a light sail being pushed by reflecting sunlight. This object is called Oumuamua because it was discovered by a telescope in Hawaii. And Oumuamua means in the Hawaiian language, a scout. So that brought me into the whole realm of possibility that, in fact, we could have artificial objects produced by extraterrestrial civilizations that would enter our backyard in the solar system. And I wrote a book about it, Extraterrestrial, about Oumuamua and the anomalies that it has. And then together with my student in 2019, 2 years later, we discovered an object that was already in a catalog that the US government compiled of meteors. These are objects that the Earth collides with along its trajectory around the sun. So it acts like a fishing net. It collects objects, it collides with them, and they burn up in the Earth's atmosphere. And we found that in January 8th, 2014, there was such a meteor that was moving very fast, so that it was definitely not bound gravitationally to the sun. It came from outside the solar system, just like Oumuamua. And then the government just half a year ago released the light curve of the fireball, the explosion that took place when the object burned up in the Earth's atmosphere. And from that, we concluded that, in fact, it had material strength stronger, tougher than iron. And it was tougher than all other 272 meteors in the catalog. So it was unusual, an outlier. And outside the solar system, it was moving faster than 95% of all the stars in the vicinity of the sun. So once again, this object that was discovered almost 4 years before Oumuamua looked weird. It didn't look like the familiar rocks from the solar system. And then just today, we are about to submit a paper talking about another interstellar meteor. And that was discovered just before Oumuamua, half a year before that. And it was also extremely tough, material strength number 3 in the catalog of meteors. So altogether, the first 2 meteors that were roughly the size of a meter appear to be outliers relative to rocks in the solar system. They are much tougher than all of the rocks. They are number 1 and number 3 in material strength. And the likelihood of that happening is less than 1 part in 10,000. So it's clear that the interstellar objects, roughly the size of a meter, originate from something different than the solar system. We don't know what they are. And there is a possibility that they are spacecraft, because a spacecraft would move faster than rocks and, moreover, could be tougher than rocks. So it raises a whole new possibility that we are being visited, because we sent out spacecraft into interstellar space, and there could have been a civilization that did the same 1 billion years ago. Most stars formed billions of years ago. And we tend to think that Albert Einstein was the smartest scientist who ever lived. But in fact, it's very likely that there was a smarter scientist on another planet around another star 1 billion years ago, simply because a substantial fraction of all the sun-like stars have a planet like the Earth, roughly at the same separation. So the dice of intelligence was rolled billions of times in the Milky Way galaxy alone. And if there was another civilization that predated us, they could have sent equipment into space that we would find around us. And it's just a question of looking. You know, you can say, just like Enrico Fermi said, you know, we don't have, where is everybody? We don't have any neighbors because I don't see anyone next to me. The point is that in order to find your neighbors, you need to look through your windows. and you better use a telescope. And in this case, you better look at your backyard, because there might be objects from the cosmic street that are in your backyard that will tell you something. You don't need to go to the neighbor's yard. You might just check your backyard. So I was really intrigued by this. And then in about a year ago, in June 2021, the Director of National Intelligence in the US released a report to the US Congress talking about objects that the intelligence agencies cannot identify. They call them unidentified aerial phenomena in the atmosphere of the Earth. So they do not think that they are associated with any other nation, with adversaries. They don't think they are natural objects, but they don't know what they are. So a month later, I decided to establish the Galileo project. There were a few multi-billionaires that visited the porch of my home. They were inspired by my book, Extraterrestrial, and they decided to give me a few $1 million, which enabled me to establish a scientific project, the Galileo project, that aims to, first of all, understand those unidentified aerial phenomena the government is talking about, because the government wants to know what these are, and understand objects like Oumuamua or the meteors. So we are actually planning an expedition to collect the fragments from one of the meteors in the coming year near Papua New Guinea. And so altogether, it's a mission trying to figure out whether we are being visited by objects from another technological civilization. That's the Galileo project.